All right, this video is about perceptual interpretation. So the first thing is that we have to talk about the difference between perceptual adaptation and perceptual set. So perceptual adaptation is this idea that we have the ability to adjust our senses to a change in our environment. So this could deal with a lot of different things. I'll give you one for instance. Last year, in my classroom, I actually had a free period. I think it was second period, that I had this free period. There was a whole bunch of, scheduling issues and everything, and some teachers had to move classrooms and things. And so during my free period last year, there was an English teacher that was teaching freshman English in my classroom. And so I would leave every day, and then I would come back to teach third period economics. So I came back in for third period economics, and almost every single day when I came in and my students came in, we were all like, "Oh, what smells? It's awful in here." And my students and I were just flummoxed, and I tried having my candle warmer going throughout third or second period when I was gone, and having it go beforehand and after, and it was just, every time, it was just this awful smell. And we finally figured out that, sadly enough, that we figured that it must be this freshman English class. And so I talked to the freshman English teacher, and I said, I'm sorry, but my students and I are complaining about this smell. And she said, "Yeah, I know." She goes, I think that a lot of my students have gym right before this class, and several of them don't shower afterwards. And I was like, oh, and my students, when they heard this, are like, how can she teach them? I mean, I would just be overwhelmed with the smell and not be able to teach them. And I said, I think it's perceptual adaptation. What's happening is that she's in there for so long that she gets used to the smell, and no longer it doesn't bother her anymore. Okay. Another example, the Inversion goggles. I usually use those in class, so hopefully by the time you're watching this, you've gotten a chance to use them. The inversion goggles, where basically they flip everything upside down, so it's just very strange and weird. But the weird thing is, I don't know if this is any more weird, is that there was actually an experiment where somebody actually wore those, where it was goggles like that, that flipped everything upside down for a solid week. He wore it for a week, and he actually adjusted to the sight, and so he got to the point where he could walk around normal. I mean, when you normally put it on right away, it is very disorienting, and you may feel dizzy and give you headaches, and some people actually fall down from them. I can't imagine trying to go downstairs with them, but he actually got to the point where he could do that. But then the trick is that, okay, so after a week where he wore them all the time and got used to them, well, the minute he took them off, that's when he started to get dizzy and headaches and fall down again, because he had gotten used to, and his perception had adapted to that particular visual field. So that's kind of an interesting little side note to that experiment, is that he got dizzy when he took them off again. Now, perceptual set, on the other hand, is when you're predisposed to something just because of how things are basically set up for you. So, for example, if you look at this picture, okay, if you ignore the left and right and you look at this going from top to bottom, you would imagine this figure in the middle would probably be a B, right? But if you ignore the A and the C and you read this left to right, you would probably imagine this figure in the middle is a 13, right? Perceptual set is when you're predisposed to a particular thing. I'll give you another example. So I did a couple of these in class. I'll only do the ones that I can do verbally. So I'm going to try, I'm going to spell some words for you, and I want you to actually say the word to yourself after I spell the word. So the first word is MACDONALD. You probably said McDonald. Second word, MACHENRY. You probably said McHenry. Third word, MACMAHON. Probably said McMahon. So the fourth word, MACHINERY. Now you probably try to have some sort of fictitious Scottish name come up in there, but if you think about it, it actually spells the word machinery. But because I set you up with the first three words that are all mech something, you wanted to say the last one was mix something else, right? So that's another example. I have another one where, what about if you have this one? Here's a good little story. It says, on the last day of school, kindergartners bring parting gifts to their teacher. She takes the first package from a florist's son, shakes it, and announces, "I know what this is. It's some flowers." "You're right," shouted the 5-year-old. When the candy store owner's daughter presents her gift, the teacher once again examines carefully, shakes the package, and declares, "I know, some candy." "How did you guess?" asked the little girl. Finally, the little boy, whose father runs a liquor store, brought his package forward. Although she noticed it was leaking, the teacher held it up, shook it, and even took a taste. "It's wine," she announced. "You're wrong," replied her student. Putting another drop on her tongue, she smiled. "Then it must be champagne." "Wrong again," said the little boy. After still tasting a third time, the teacher gave up. "Tell me, what is this wonderful gift?" Grinning, the little boy answered, "It's a puppy!" Okay, that's just kind of gross. But you get the idea. Perceptual set where you're just kind of predisposed to something because you are kind of like set up for one thing, and so you interpret it as following along with that particular setup. Okay? So I got another couple of examples for you. So here is a picture of my parents. So these are my parents. This is Diane and Mike, and this is actually an older picture from a few years ago. I need to get a new picture. And then these are my siblings, okay? So this is Christina, obviously that's me, that's Gabby, and that's Jeremy. So, what similarities do you see between my parents and my siblings? So if you notice, some people will, and this is hard when I don't have anybody to respond to, some people will notice that, well, we have the same eyes, or the same hair, or facial features, right? Some nose. So, you noticing some similarities between my family? Okay, well, now, what if I told you one of us is adopted? Can you pick out which one is adopted? In the past, I've had people that say, I've had people that suggest that they're like, "Oh, you're the one adopted." No, I'm not adopted. And obviously, no, it's not my parents either. So one of my siblings is adopted. Automatically, I have people that automatically assume that it's my sister Christina because, she just sits differently and she has a different look about her, but nope, she's not adopted. So then people go to my brother and they say, maybe he's adopted. Nope, not my brother. Actually, it's Gabby that's adopted. This picture was actually taken when she graduated high school a few years ago. So like I said, I need to update it. But Gabby is actually adopted. I have only known Gabby since she was about 16 years old. My parents are foster parents. It was a scenario where she was going to age out of foster care. And my parents decided that they had not gone into foster care to adopt. They went in just to help people, and myself and my sister Christina and my brother were all out of the house. We're grown, and my parents are like, we have time, we have money, we can give to somebody else, and so they've fostered many people. And they did end up actually adopting Gabby. They adopted her when she was 17. And she graduated high school and she's in college now. And it's funny because whenever she is out with my mom, and there's times where they will run into somebody that Gabby knows that my mom does not know. Gabby will introduce my mom and she will say, "Yeah, this is my mom, Diane." And more times than I can tell you, more times than I can count, and they will tell me this frequently, where they will say that, the person that Gabby introduces our mom to, and she will say, "This is my mom, Diane," And they will oftentimes say, oh, yeah, I can see the resemblance. Yeah, I can see it in, the nose and the cheekbones or whatever. They'll pick out something. And my mom and Gabby won't correct them. They're just like, oh, yeah, really? And so they just kind of laugh about it and they think it's funny. But here's the perceptual set. I say this is my family, and you automatically assume, and whenever this happens, wherever, you say this is my brother, my sister, my cousin, my aunt, my uncle, whatever, you automatically look for those family resemblances, right? You're like, oh, I can see that. I can see the traits, right? Or you hear somebody's last name, and you're like, oh, that sounds like this person's last name. Oh, you must be related. Start to look for those things. That's, again, perceptual set. Perceptual set can also be affected by context as well as emotions and motivations. So another example, if you're a runner, if you've ever run marathons, or you've run trails or whatever, marathons and trails. My husband's a runner now. He'll talk about how, when he's running and when he comes across a hill, right? And the context of that hill. Well, it makes a difference if that hill is, for example, on mile 20 of a marathon, or even if it's, mile 3, or if you're talking about just coming across a hill when you're running and it seems, so incredibly high and long, and does this ever end, compared to, hey, maybe if you're, just walking up the hill or even driving up the hill, you're like, what the heck's the difference? This is not a big deal, right? But perceptual set can also be affected by your motivations and your emotions. So I got a little story for you, another one, that again came from some book resources, but it's still funny. So it's a story about a girl in college. So that's why I have the picture of the girl in college. So it's a letter, right? So it says, "Dear Mom and Dad, since I left for college, I have been remiss in writing, and I am sorry for my thoughtlessness in not having written before. I will bring you up to date now, but before you read on, please sit down. You're not ready to read. You're not to read any further unless you are sitting down. Okay? Well then, I am getting along pretty well now. The skull fracture and the concussion I got when I jumped out the window of my dormitory when it caught on fire shortly after my arrival here is pretty well healed now. I only spent 2 weeks in the hospital, and now I can see almost normally and only get those sick headaches once a day. Fortunately, the fire in the dormitory and my jump was witnessed by an attendant at the gas station near the dorm, and he was the one who called the fire department and the ambulance. He also visited me in the hospital, and since I had nowhere to live because of the burnt-out dormitory, he was kind enough to invite me to share his apartment with him. It's really a basement room, but it's kind of cute. He's a very fine boy, and we have fallen deeply in love and are planning to get married. We haven't got the exact date yet, but it will be before my pregnancy begins to show. Yes, Mother and Dad, I am pregnant. I know how much you are looking forward to being grandparents, and I know you will welcome the baby and give it the same love and devotion and tender care you gave me when I was a child. The reason for the delay in our marriage is that my boyfriend has a minor infraction which prevents us from passing our premarital blood test, and I carelessly caught it from him. Sorry, that was infection. I know that you will welcome him into our family with open arms. He is kind, and although not well educated, he is ambitious. Although he's of a different race and religion than ours, I know your often expressed tolerance will not permit you to be bothered by that. Now that I've brought you up to date, I want to tell you that there was no dormitory fire. I did not have a concussion or skull fracture. I was not in the hospital. I am not pregnant. I am not engaged. I am not infected, and there is no boyfriend. However, I am getting a D in American history and an F in chemistry, and I want you to see those marks in their proper perspective. Love, your daughter, Sharon. So again, perceptual set is affected by emotions. You are set up for all of this, right? And getting all this negative, and then in the end, that D and F doesn't sound so bad compared to all the alternatives. So that's the idea of perceptual set. All right, let me know if you have any questions. That's it for now.